Throughout history, few rivalries have shaped the world as profoundly as the clash between the cross and the crescent. For centuries, kingdoms rose and empires burned beneath banners of faith. But behind the holy words and sacred vows, another force moved: power. Was it truly belief that drove men to war for the Holy Land, or was it ambition cloaked in the language of God? This is the story of how faith became a weapon, how empires used heaven to conquer earth, and how humanity's search for the divine became a struggle for domination. The spark. A world divided. The story begins in the 7th century, when the world of late antiquity stood on the edge of transformation. The Roman Empire in the West had fallen, leaving behind a fractured Europe ruled by feudal lords and Christian monarchs. To the east, the Byzantine Empire guarded the remnants of Roman glory, a Christian bastion under siege from within and without. Then, from the deserts of Arabia, a new voice rose: the message of Islam. Within a single generation, the followers of Muhammad united Arabia and set their eyes beyond the dunes. To them, their faith was not conquest for conquest's sake, but liberation, spreading monotheism and law where chaos once reigned. The speed was astonishing. Within a century, Muslim armies had swept across North Africa, crossed into Spain, and threatened the gates of Constantinople. For Christendom, it was a shock. The world of the faithful, once unchallenged, now faced a rival civilization, equally devout, disciplined, and convinced of divine purpose. Yet in these early centuries, religion was not just a belief. It was identity, law, and empire. To expand faith was to expand sovereignty. And so began a rivalry, not just of gods, but of worlds. The faith, holy lands, holy wars. By the 11th century, the Mediterranean had become a frontier between civilizations. Trade flowed, cultures mingled, but tensions simmered beneath. In the heart of the Middle East lay Jerusalem, sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. For centuries, the city had changed hands peacefully between rulers. But when the Seljuk Turks, new converts to Islam, seized Jerusalem and restricted Christian pilgrimages, alarm spread across Europe. Then came the call. In 1095, Pope Urban II stood before the Council of Clermont and proclaimed the First Crusade, a holy war to reclaim the lands of Christ. His words electrified Europe. Deus vult, God wills it. But behind that rallying cry were many motives. Kings saw glory, knights saw salvation, merchants saw opportunity. When the Crusaders marched east, they carried both crosses and ambitions. In 1099, Jerusalem fell to the Crusaders after a brutal siege. The massacre that followed was legendary. Blood ran through the streets of the holy city. Christendom rejoiced. Islam grieved. But far from ending the conflict, that conquest ignited centuries of struggle. The Crusader kingdoms were fragile outposts, surrounded by powerful Muslim states. And in those lands rose a man who would redefine chivalry, faith, and war. Salah al-Din, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, known to the West as Saladin. The sword, Saladin and the reconquest. Saladin was not born into power. He was a Kurdish officer who rose through merit, uniting the fractured Muslim world under a single banner. He understood what his enemies did not. Victory required unity, and unity required purpose beyond revenge. When Saladin recaptured Jerusalem in 1187, he did so with restraint. Unlike the Crusaders before him, he spared civilians, offered safe passage to Christians, and treated even his enemies with dignity. For the Muslim world, he was a hero, a defender of the faith. For Europe, he was an enigma, a man of honor in a world of bloodshed. But the wars did not end there. Richard the Lionheart, King of England, led the Third Crusade to reclaim Jerusalem. Their confrontation became legend. Two warriors, both devout, both bound by pride and destiny. Though neither side achieved total victory, mutual respect emerged. When Richard fell ill, Saladin sent his own physician. The city remained Muslim, but for a moment, faith transcended hate. And yet that respect could not undo centuries of distrust. The Crusades continued in waves, each one bloodier and less noble than the last. By the 13th century, the dream of holy conquest had faded, replaced by politics, greed, and the quiet exhaustion of endless war. The empire, beyond faith. Even after the last Crusader fortress fell in 1291, the rivalry endured, reshaped but not erased. The struggle between Christianity and Islam transformed into a geopolitical chess match. In the east, the Ottoman Empire rose, inheriting both the mantle of the caliphate and the ambitions of empire. In 1453, they achieved what centuries of warriors could not: the fall of Constantinople, the last jewel of Byzantium. The Christian world watched in horror as the ancient city became Istanbul, and Hagia Sophia, once the grandest cathedral, became a mosque. Europe answered with crusades not of knights, but of navies and merchants. The age of exploration was born from this struggle, when Portugal and Spain sought to bypass Muslim-controlled trade routes by sailing around Africa. In their pursuit of profit and power, they spread Christianity across oceans, from the Americas to the Philippines. Thus, the rivalry left the battlefield and entered the world economy. Faith became policy, mission became empire. And though the wars were now fought with ships and silver instead of swords, the question remained the same. Was it still about God or about dominion? The legacy, lessons of faith and power. For centuries, both sides claimed righteousness. Both saw themselves as defenders of truth. But history reveals a more complex truth, that faith often served as the banner under which ambition marched. The Crusades were never just wars of belief. They were also about resources, trade, influence, and pride. The same could be said for the Muslim empires, from the Abbasids to the Ottomans, who sought both spiritual unity and political control. And yet, it would be unfair to see only cynicism. Out of this long struggle came exchanges that shaped civilization itself. Mathematics, medicine, philosophy, and art flowed between East and West. Arabic scholars preserved Greek wisdom that Europe had forgotten. Crusaders brought back spices, paper, and new ways of thinking. Ironically, centuries of war also brought dialogue, a reluctant recognition of shared humanity. Even in battle, letters of respect crossed enemy lines. Prisoners were ransomed instead of slaughtered. Treaties were signed in the name of peace. But perhaps the deepest lesson lies not in conquest or victory, but in the mirror these wars hold up to us. They show how faith, when fused with power, can elevate humanity to courage or drag it into cruelty. It is not belief that destroys, it is certainty, the conviction that one's truth alone is divine. Today, the echoes of those ancient wars still ripple through headlines and borders. Yet beneath the politics and the fear lies the same paradox that began in the sands of Arabia, that humans long for meaning, and in seeking heaven, we often reshape the earth in its image. So why did Christians and Muslims fight for centuries? Because both believed they were defending God. But history whispers a quieter answer. They were defending themselves, their world, their pride, their power. And in that struggle, both lost and learned. Faith can unite or divide, heal or burn. What matters is not which God we serve, but how we serve, through conquest or through compassion. Because when belief becomes a weapon, even the holiest cause can lose its soul. And perhaps, in remembering that, we can finally break the cycle that once turned faith into fire. Subscribe Timeless Questions channel for more thought-provoking stories about philosophy, history, and the unseen forces shaping our world.